So, hello, comrades. Today we will speak about very big topic, very important from Polish perspective. We will talk about very strong Polish nationalist movement, and our speaker is Comrade Piotr. Hello, comrade.
Hello, comrades. This is Comrade Piotr from Polish Workers' Party. Today's topic will be nationalism in Poland. We were waiting quite a while with talking about it because there were more important things. So I'm really happy we are finally doing it. Mm, I have prepared a little presentation. Okay. Nationalists in Poland, enemies or potential allies. I think the topics says it all. There is this big question: should we or shouldn't we cooperate with nationalists? If there is there even a point in doing so? And we're gonna analyze it from the socialist perspective. One moment, just let me take a look. Okay. So, Marxism and nationalism. We have to distinguish that there isn't like one universal kind of nationalism. We can separate them to imperial nationalisms and independence nationalisms. Imperial nationalisms are, of course, all these movements in, for example, Western Europe or USA, that is white pride, things like that is white nationalism, justification for imperialism, and so on. Meanwhile, the independence nationalism is something that is going on in third world countries. For example, today it would be in South America, for example. It's very often based not on like straight Marxist theory, their independence movements, but is also combined with independence-based nationalisms. Very important is to know that a large part of successful revolutions was in fact based on some sort of independence nationalisms. On the picture here we have military parade from socialist Poland. Socialist Poland haven't emerged because of revolution, but it was created after World War II when Poland was, let's say, added to this Soviet Union-driven Eastern Bloc. But still, it's important to know that these nationalistic tendencies were a very important part in socialist Poland. So, as we see, the contradiction between Marxism and nationalism isn't really necessary. I don't know. We could talk about like revolutions in Asia, in China or Vietnam. They were very nationalist based. North Korea is basically a nationalist country till now. I don't know if we want to dive so deep into that subject.
Yes, maybe I would like to ask you a question, difficult question, I suppose, because you said about nationalism in the South America. It's important, I think, from perspective of Cuba, where it's true that we can say that very often the Fidel Castro, he finished his speeches saying the fatherland and or death. So it was something patriotic, but in the same way, we have analysis of the war, civil war in Peru, and the base of the civil war in Peru was also it is also based from the ethnic question, but it is not against the US imperialism like the Cuban patriotism movement, but it is against the Peruvian state is divided. From one side you have the white elites Creole, which are living in the big cities in Peru, and they are the power, economic power, and also political power in Peru uh, mm, from creation, since creation of this state. And in the same time, we have the native population of Indians in the mountains, which are poor, which are discriminated in this country. And one of the reason why they participated in the guerrilla movement in 1980s, it was fighting the many Indians from these poor villages. They are participating in this revolutionary movement against white Creoles. So, how you will define from this perspective, the country which is divided from two nations? How you will define what is revolutionary nationalism in this country? What is reactionary nationalism in this country? What is your analysis?
Mm, it's like part of the question about this presentation at all. If nationalism would be just kind of good or something like that, we would all agree that this is good idea to work with them, to maybe even adopt some nationalist views, but it is not. Uh, I don't have too much knowledge on the situation in Peru you are talking about. Mm, but yes, we can divide nationalisms into these revolutionary ones like in Cuba and these reactionary ones. In Poland, we do have these different tendencies, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later. Mm,
But Poland also is very interesting example, because when we are analyzing the situation in what was the most important force of the socialist Poland in the 1940s and 1950s. When you ask this question to the Polish people today, Polish anti-communists, they will said that the base of the Polish political police, the Urząd Bezpieczeństwa, that it was ruling by the Jews, by the people like Jakub Berman, who was a Jew, and many other Jews. They are starting to talk about the Żydo-Bolshevia or Żydo-Komuna, that we have the Polish population, but the communist the communist police are creating by the Jewish people. But in this time, the Jewish people and Polish people are united to fighting against Germany. They are fighting to survive like a people, like a nation, because the the Hitler wanted to exterminate the Jews, but also he wanted after exterminate the Slavic nations like Polish. So firstly, we have revolutionary alliance, but in after it's starting, we have this problem between the Polish nationalists in the Communist Party, which are against Jews, and this is the history of Mochar and 1968. But sorry that I interrupt you.
No, it's fine. You can go to the next slide, by the way, because it's about yes things we are talking about right now. The problem with nationalism is that, like with many other, how to say it, jak powiedzieć zjawiska po angielsku? Phenomena,
I
social
don't
phenomena,
know.
among other social phenomena, is that the term nationalism is pretty much very subjective. So, what is at what isn't? You're talking about that in one moment Poles and Jews cooperate as one nation against Nazi Germany invasion, and the other day they fight each other, like a Polish nation against a Jewish nation. This is one of the basic problems of nationalisms, because you don't have like clear borderline between one nation and another. This brings us to the origins of nationalism. That was nationalism was some sort of tool to dismantle these large European empires from within, because they were occupying lands of many different nations, cultures, and so on. It is very important part of Polish culture because we were being conquered by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. And at the moment, this was pretty much revolutionary because this was a way to, like I said, dismantle the imperial government, which was, of course, reactionary, and was a chance to create something progressive during creation of the new state. This basically happened with Bolshevik Revolution. It was also very much based on some sort of nationalism, maybe more patriotism, but the border between patriotism and nationalism is another topic. But yeah, in the beginning, it's basically a tool against imperiums, and it doesn't really matter if the definition of a nation is consistent or not. The problem comes later when national states grow in the entire Europe, and not only. And these national states are becoming ambitious. The national states aren't socialist ones, they aren't internationalists. These are like small organisms that basically want to first survive, and the other thing to dominate other states around. For example, Poland during between war period had these like imperial ambitions besides the fact it was a very poor country. So returning to nationalism, because I went a little bit far. it becomes not a tool to dismantle an empire when there is no empire. It becomes a reactionary tool to justify national state, which is at the moment a reactionary form of a state, in my opinion. Mm, maybe similar thing happen in socialist Poland, like you are talking the situation with Jews and so on. Like the external threat of Nazi Germany was out of the table. They lost, and you had to do something with this nationalism. Like people see that there are different groups within that nation, and it's easy to like push them from point where okay, we are a Polish nation, we are Poles, and so on and so on, to the point where they divide that group into these true Polish people and these outsiders who just live here or something, right? So this is problem of nationalism. If it's not really a positive ideology or basically like not a positive way, but negative. Like it's against the foreign imperials, but it's not uniting just for the sake of uniting.
Kamrat, my question to you: If can I interrupt you and make debate,
Mhm.
or you want to? If yes, I would like to say that you say about origin of Polish nationalism, but we need to say that the origin of nationalism is not in Poland, but I suppose in France, in the time of the French Revolution, and the situation of France and the Polish is totally different. In
Mhm.
Poland in 19th century, we have a nation which was occupied by the foreign state. So Polish nationalism was always against somebody who came to Poland to occupy our land. In France, we have the situation when the nationalism in France was against monarchy. Monarchy, which in the time of the French Revolution, it was a marriage of the French guy Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who was a German from Austria. Austria, she was Austrian. And this nationalism in this time, it was not nationalism fighting for independence, it was uniting nation against the parasite in this nation. It was uniting nation against the aristocracy, against the clergy, against monarchy. And in my opinion, nationalism in the French Revolution was totally progressive, and it was leftist idea. And so the basic question from our perspective when we speak about nationalism is to say that the origin of this idea is leftist. After it became the idea using by the right-wing fascist, but the origin of this was the anti-monarchic, and it was what and this it was the idea that every member of the society have a right because he is a member of society, and it was against the society which are ruling by the elites, by the dynasty, by the feudal. So it is my interruption.
Mhm. I mean, it's basically historical materialism. Oh, hello, comrade.
Hi.
It's basically historical materialism, like in practice, that different political or socio-economical systems start as progressive, but they get old during time, during progress and such. Like, let's say, feudalism was uh, pretty progressive compared to the slave-based societies of ancient times. But if today we would talk about like restoring feudalism or something, this would be 100% reactionary idea because it's a large step backward, right? The situation with nationalism is very similar to that. Like you said, it started as a leftist idea, but it got old. I mean, it got old at least in countries where it was practiced. So it's mostly first world, it's mostly Europe and so on. But not necessarily in countries that were pushed backwards. So let's say in Vietnam, when they were fighting for the independence, in Europe, nationalism, especially in the Western Europe, it was mostly reactionary. I mean, we had World War II with German nationalists and so on. Like we all know the atrocities made by them. All know that they were mostly reactionary at the moment. But in other hand, in Vietnam, some sort of this independent nationalism was one of the forces bringing people to fight against imperialism and capitalism, right? I mean, it's just my observation. I might be wrong.
No, you're totally right. And you're kind of on point on this whole subject. The difference between this is where colonialism comes in, because there is a difference between colonized nationalism, which is like uh, nationalism of like African Americans, nationalism of Haitians, nationalism of Southern American countries, nationalism of African countries, nationalism of any other country or group that has been colonized. And the difference between that and the nationalism of white people, wherever they go, because there has been white nationalism all around the world. There has been white nationalism in Africa, South Africa, and apartheid is the best example of that. Australia is another point, right? Like that. The whole existence of this country is white nationalism and colonialism. The existence of United States, the existence of Canada is white nationalism. And the way that some white leftists or white people who proclaim to be leftists are showing nationalism in United States in particular as being like this progressive anti-capitalist idea is wrong. Like this is very like colonial idea that just reinforces the system it doesn't really do anything to dismantle it or to help poor people or to help Black people, to help any oppressed group in that system. It's kind of based, because it's funny, because it's also a lot, some of these people who also say these things, they say that identity politics is stupid, but they are literally doing that. They are doing like identity politics in their own way. But just because it is identity politics of the major group that already exists in the status quo, it's not presented as being identity politics. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on this subject for now.
Michał, you want to add something?
Yes, I think that in the time of the war in 1945, war which was started by the Soviet Union against Japan, it was the war when the Western imperialist countries pushing Stalin to make this war, because they knew that if the Soviet Union will not attack Japan, this war of American against Japan, it can be during a long time. So Soviet Union, after the finished the war in Europe, attacked Japan, and very quickly they kick out the Japanese from the Korean peninsula, and also they take some of the island. And from this perspective that white is always bad and not white is always good, it's not work in this situation, because in one side we have the socialist state ruling by the people who are born in Europe, and in the other side we have the Japanese fascists, which are responsible for the extermination of millions of Chinese people. So the example of the Japanese imperialism show us that yes, it's true, most of the crimes in the world are made by the Western imperialism, but the countries which try to copy this example, like Japanese, it's the same situation or even worse.
Well, you are correct, but like the point of this is not that. That's what I'm saying. Actually, that is what I'm saying. Like it really it's not identity politics in the way that it is shown, because like white nationalism and white colonialism, or like colonialism as a concept, colonialism as a concept is not something that is done specifically or only by white people. It is done by like a specific group that gets a hold of resources, and it's not a friendly takeover, right? It's not like a helping hand. It's like it has to do with genocide. It has to do with erasing national culture of the native people in any way, shape, or form, right? And enforcing the culture and the customs and the economic system on these people. And it has to do with it doesn't have to do with how you look, right? Like as you said, like colonialism can be done by non-white people, right? But like whiteness doesn't have to do with your skin color at all. Whiteness is sort of a state of mind, and we can go into like a whole history of how Japanese people were coming to America suing the nation for them denying, for the country denying them the status of whiteness. It's a whole thing. And yes, this country was, or actually is still colonialism, is still colonialist. But it's like they are not doing, I don't want to say they are copying. No, that is what I want to say. Yes, they are kind of copying what the West already done in the past. They are doing just what they learned somewhere else. And another point is that colonialism doesn't have a face, right? So that's why, for example, in Africa, there are neo-colonial puppets who are neo-colonial, right? But they really don't care. These are people that are specifically have like this outlook of exploiting their own people for the benefit of like a small, very small minority, specifically on that basis. Also because the history of anti-colonial movement in Africa specifically is so violent, or like so violently repressed, that any kind of leader that tried to go even like a little bit to the left, they were assassinated and put in place puppets to serve the Western nations. So yes.
I think that when we talk about the colonial state, which is governed by the puppets of the imperialism, we can speak about our country. It's not necessarily searching in Africa. I think that this analysis totally is correct when we are speaking about Poland.
I mean, a little bit, but it doesn't have like a specific connotations that also come with colonialism. Like as I said, colonialism is like a specific phenomenon that has to do with outright genocide, like killing hundreds or millions of people from that specific land. United States is not doing that to us. And I'm glad you brought it up, because this also has to do with how Poland is viewed, first of all, by other nations, by other Western nations, and how our elite sees themselves as well. Throughout the history, like if you really learn it from the right view, you can see how we have adopted like this kind of role that the West has given us to be the last bastion of the Western civilization. How we were like one of the, like the this kind of border without I'm trying to use a specific word here.
Like border of
border
Western
without a wall.
civilization.
Border without a wall. Which like we have been not inducted, but indoctrinated we have been indoctrinated with like we are this like Western civilization, that we are part of this Western part of the world, if that makes sense, you know, that we are part of the United Nations, of the European Union, like we are Europeans, and that this sort of means that we are white. That's one. And second, that it means that we have some sort of connection and interests that align with that group. And like as I said, it is not just for today where we are capitalists for like the last a little bit over 3 decades, but throughout history of Poland, like we have been associated with like this last, as I said, like last point of European civilization, like civilized people, and east from us there is savagery. There is like no civilization. These people have no culture. These people are not Christians. So we should go and do something about it. So you see, like nationalism has also a lot of other connotations that nationalism outside of white countries or white based ideology just doesn't. It's like structured differently. Yeah.
Maybe let's get back to the presentation, otherwise it's gonna last forever. I think we could talk like freely a little bit later. I think this should be fine. But returning to the original topic, talking about state of Polish nationalism today, so kind of continuing what Comrade Artistich said. Current state of Polish nationalism is depicted on these two photos. Before Comrade Artistich came in, I was maybe a little bit romanticizing this whole idea of nationalism, its leftist origins, its role in third world countries. When we look at today's Poland, nationalism is mostly like what we see on the left. This is a photo taken, if I am not wrong, from the counter demonstration during first Pride parade in city of Białystok in Poland. As you can see, there isn't on this photo, but on the entire event there wasn't much Polish flags, for example, all that patriotic spirit. It was mostly reactionary homophobia and things like that. What I'm trying to say is today's nationalism in Poland very often is like empty thing. It's like empty shell. There's some aesthetics referencing the Polish nationality, but in the inside, it basically has no one like theory. There's no theoretical basis. There's no philosophy behind it. It's just the nationalism is just explanation for whatever you want, we can say. There's also people on the right photo, and the right photo is like the version of Polish nationalism that nationalists would like you to believe it is like the true face of it. So you have a large crowd of people, there are flags, everything like peaceful and patriotic. The photo was taken during Independence Day in Poland. The Independence Day in Poland is basically an event that was original idea of making this presentation at all. One of the reasons is because of the people that participated in. We could go to the next slide. And here we will talk about different groups within the nationalist movement and their role in capitalist society of today's Poland. And the photos before, we could see like two faces of the Polish nationalism. I think we could actually talk about three of them. One would be like the normal patriots, basically normal people who consider themselves patriots, so they attend, for example, events like the Independence Day. So these are the people you've seen on the right photo. There are working class nationalists, so the people on the left photo, and a few slides later, there will be yet another group that will be middle and upper class nationalists. That's it. Just go back, please. More. We can stop here. Working class nationalists is, I think, the group we are most interested in because they're working class, right? So from the socialist perspective, these are the people we care about. I've put here a few of the aspects, I'm not sure how to say it, of these people. So they are often uneducated. I mean, they have usually no higher education. Most of things they have learned in school or something like that. They have a backward worldview. Like on that photo, it's basically pointless homophobia, pointless hatred against many different groups. There's anti-Semitism, of course. There was, but I think there still is strong anti-Ukrainian tendencies among these people, mostly because of mass migration of Ukrainian workers to Poland. So yes, they are religious or they pretend to be. I think this other part is a little bit important because religion in Poland is, I think, mostly cultural thing, especially in rural Poland, because many people they would declare themselves Christians, but some of them would participate in Christian events, like they would go to church every Sunday and so on. But very often it has not religious like reasons, but more like cultural ones, because this is what you do. Like, you don't want to be an outsider, so you go to church, you behave, and so on and so on. Even if you don't really read the Bible or really care about all of that. I'm talking about this because it's Christian religion is a very important part of this nationalist aesthetics and propaganda. Another thing, they are strongly anti-socialist and anti-communist. At the photo right here, we can see a banner of March 1st. That is day of cursed soldiers. I'm not sure how to say it. Basically, they were right-wing guerrillas in post-war Poland. When the socialist government was forming up, country was rebuilding. Some people, mostly from right-wing partisan, I'm not sure how to say it, partisan organizations like NSZ, they didn't put down their weapons, they didn't go back to homes. They just stayed in forest and continued their fight, this time not against Germans. There's actually a whole discussion if they really even fought the Germans or they were just some sort of bandits actually cooperating with Nazis. But yeah, like was I talking, they haven't put down their weapons. They continued their fight and became just ordinary bandits, terrorizing common people on the rural parts of Poland, sabotaging production and so on. So anti-communism is, I think, one of the strongest part of Polish nationalism, both for working class and these upper class nationalists. I think it's also the main reason that Polish nationalism in the state it is today even exists, because if we look at Polish culture after 1989, we will see drastic rise of neo-Nazism, nationalism, and things like that. Everything on that wave of anti-communism, of that neoliberal propaganda. So this is very important part in all of this. And if we want to bring these people on our side, we will have to do something about it. The last thing about these people is fact that they are living in small towns or poor neighborhoods of larger cities. I put up there also an information that all of the above are result of lack of the non-elitist left wing in Poland. Because it could raise a question why working class people are anti-working class, right? Why do they hate leftists, trade unions, and so on? I think main reason is the fact there is no mainstream actual left. What is considered left, there are social democrats who are addressing their policies and basically address like the whole existence of their party or parties to the upper class citizens of Poland. And even if they would address to the working class, I think people still wouldn't support them because many of their policies are actually anti-worker. And this is a good moment to say that Social Democrats actually won the election in post-socialist Poland, mostly because the Social Democrat Party was made mostly of people from the ruling party from socialist era, and people wanted to go back. Unfortunately, Social Democrats happen to be neoliberals, and people feel how to say it. Mm, I mean, people feel like they've been lied to, and it sticks with the left, I think, until today. And what today's social democrats are doing isn't helping that at all. Mm, uh, should we talk about more like the the basics of these working class nationalists, or do we go to debate if we can like, let's say, bring them to our sides, or should we just let them be or something?
I think that we can debate a little. Uh, I would like to say some words about the Polish Social Democrats, because very often the mainstream propaganda of these leftist parties, of these social democrats, they present themselves like there is the opposition. That in one side we have the reactionary nationalist, and in second side, and they are present themselves like the progressists because they are anti-nationalists. But if we are try to think what is the identity, national identity of Polish Social Democrats, we can look, for example, from the image which were in the in the time of the putsch organized in Belarus. And in this time the Polish Social Democrats very often they make demonstration on opposite of the Belarusian embassy in Warsaw, and they are going there with the flag, not Polish flag, but the European Union flag. And my tese is that the Polish Social Democrats are also nationalists, but it is not ethno-nationalist of Polish nation, but it is European nationalist. And all this creation of European Union, that in theory it is the economic structure, but I ask question, if it is only the question of economic, why in European Union there are only a Christian country? Why they don't want to invite Turkey, which wanted to be a part of European Union? Why they don't want to Morocco or Algeria, which also wanted to be part of the European Union? And why in this allies of the European Union there is so much hatred against Russia, and all this disrespect against Belarus? And I think that we have to examine these leftists in Poland like European nationalist. And this history of European nationalists, it is very, very bad history, because it is history of the 19th century colonization of Africa, and this continuation, it was continue in the time of the all these bad guys in 20th century. So what do you think about this?
Well, yes, of course. Like European Union and the creation of it is consolidation of colonial wealth. And as you said, this is European nation. Like just from the name of it, it's European nation. So what's the ideological basis of it? European nationalism, right? So just from its name, you can already tell what's it about, and from who even started it, you can see what's their history and what's their goal, right? So again, this is consolidation of colonial wealth and keeping mm, keeping all of its assets the way they are, right? So, of course they will be against Russia. Of course they will embargo Cuba. Of course they will embargo China. Of course they will embargo Venezuela, right? Of course they are gonna do all of these colonial activity to reinforce the point and keep their place, but also change the name of it. So like they are colonialists without saying that they are colonialists. It's one of those tricks when it's, you know, it's there, but it's never said. So yeah.
I think it's also very interesting, the whole idea of these so-called liberal progressives, who all say that they're anti-racist and so on, they're anti-colonialist, but in the end, all they do is just supporting colonial imperial powers. It can be said about liberals in Europe, but also in, let's say, United States, where there's a very often all these jokes when there's election, so that people like in third world won't be bombed anymore with normal bombers, but this time there will be like rainbow flags on them and I don't know, Black Lives Matter logos. So it will be fine now. But going back to the original topic, I think we can and we should fight for these working class nationalists, because I believe the fact these people are nationalists is mostly because for all these years of post-socialist Poland, there wasn't really strong leftist organization they could support, or organization that would promote ideas or ideology that would be attractive to these people. There was for some time this, let's say, agrarian party, Samoobrona, which was kind of leftist. This organization gathered a lot of these people, but in the end it was dismantled, and these people didn't really have any better place to go. So many of them just became nationalists because these nationalists reach out to them, and the ideology seems more attractive than this, maybe not, than this liberalism, which is pro-European and can easily be interpreted as something anti-Polish. So, like you said, they feel like they see themselves as some sort of opposition against them.
Yes, but I am not agree with this title of this slide. This question of the working class nationalism. I think that the real this conflict between the uh, liberal elites which support European Union in the big cities and these Polish nationalists from small towns. It is the opposition between the people who are working for the big corporation and the elites of the Polish society, and the people from small town, which are very often small petty bourgeoisie. Why I am not thinking that there are working class? Because working class in Poland is totally depoliticized. People who are young, who have 15, 16, 18 years, they can participate in this movement. But when they are when they are 25 or 30, they have to work. They have to work for their families, and Polish people are one of the most working, hardworking people in Europe. Very often, they are not only work for one work, but they try to find something other job. So they all the time they are working, and then they have time to political activity. So people who have time for political activity, it is of course the parasite from the big towns, but in the small towns, the elites of the small towns is the small bourgeoisie. The owners of the small shops, the small owners of the I don't know small Warstadt, workshop, or I don't know how to say workshop. And most of the
founders
working
of founders of non-governmental organizations.
no, it's something different. But I think that the most of the working class, when in this some age, they are not care. They really don't care about politics because they have to work, and very often, if somebody needs to take decision of emigration, it is the people from working class. And emigration, it is something which is um, that it's very fun. That very often I in France I meet the guy who have a tattoo with the nationalist symbols, and when I speak with him, he said me that when he was young, he participated in the football. He watched the match. He participating in the nationalist activities, but after he emigrated and he stopped, he don't have time for this. And there are no, and it is not and from perspective of the liberal propaganda, they try to show the nationalist movement like a movement very, very strong, because one time in the year in Warsaw they have big demonstration. But the question is why they organize demonstration in 11th of November, because this is the day where they are not working. They can repeat this demonstration one few days after, because you have to work, you have to, so you are very proud of the Polish nation, patriot and radical political activist one time a year.
Artistish, you wanna add something?
I'm not sure. Can you repeat the question?
I mean, I or Michał?
Okay, so I will ask a question. Maybe you know answer, because the question is how we can how we can speak with these people and not be killed by them, because
Yeah.
when they are shouting in the forest, no, how to do
Instead
uh,
of leaves, there will be communist hanging. I mean, in direct
Oh yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
people's
Yeah, for sure.
translation.
one time with the hammer, one time with the sickle, kill the red bandits or stuff like this. So I
Mhm.
don't have problem with speak with these people when I am speaking in this situation. I don't know which is which is face to face, and it is the situation. I don't know, family meeting, the party, or stuff like this. I can speak with every participate guy who participated in the day of the independence, and after 5 minutes he became my friend, and he is agree with me in many things. When I starting to criticize the European Union, the corporation, the exploitation, the situation that the Polish salaries are the smallest one in the Europe, all the time he agree with me. So when I am
Mhm.
speaking with one guy, it's good. But if tomorrow I will speak with the crowd of the Polish nationalists, I will not say any word because they will kill me. It's my impression.
Yeah, they have a hive mind. They have a hive mind. Like the hive mind takes over, and suddenly they don't have their individual uh things to dismantle like around them. It's just like what this group is about. Um, okay, so two things. One thing is it is important that we don't just let them let ourselves think that just because we agree on like one or two points, that now they are our allies. Like this is not a base that we are speaking to, whatever the class is. Whatever their class is, if they are anti-communist, uh, they might do a lot of harm when if they are invited into our spaces. So I don't think so. One thing is to not unite around one policy. Um, and I had another thing, but I need a minute to remember what I wanted to say. But for that time, maybe Repto can answer that question as well.
Mm, I think we should remember that not all the members of this group are the same, and many of these people are just looking for their place in the world, in the society, or the political spectrum. So, mm, big part of these people participating in the nationalist movement, I think they are convertible to our side. I mean, like I said, today's left is very pro-Western. Outside right wing, there isn't actually a collectivist pro-Polish force. So a lot of people who just feel patriotic, who see that something is wrong with today's society, that the economy is in bad shape and so on. They are looking for a place for themselves, and they end up in this nationalist group. So I think some people would be really easy to convert to our side. Other people are, like Artistic said, totally different than us, even if you agree on some point. There are toxic people among these people. There are Nazis among them, and so on. So, of course, we won't save everyone, let's say, from this Nazi pipeline, but I think it is possible to help a lot of these people, maybe even majority. Hello again, Michał.
Yes, that's actually the second thing I wanted to say. Yes, that they are convertible, but I don't think they should be in a party. This should be the electoral part of the nation, not in the ranks of the party. Another thing that I wanted to say is that, as you have mentioned, that the capitalist left, well, the Polish left is not as left as they try to show themselves as. Well, yes, but it's also that's the left everywhere where there is capitalism. If you notice, literally anywhere in the world, but in particular in the USA, it is most vicious to see that. Also, this leftism in capitalist countries, they are doing a lot of psyops that they observe a lot of revolutionary movements. They take some of the parts of it, dilute it in a way that makes that ideology non-threatening, and they use it themselves. So, like, this is what happened, for example, with intersectionality. And it got turned into identity politics. And the way that the left and the right is using that is a little bit different, but ultimately has the same goal, and which is to divide the working class and say that we are not one united working class that has different issues, but there is the LGBT working class, there is the women working class, there is the men working class, there is the disabled working class, and these groups are all different and have different goals. They have different politics. They have different needs, and that these groups should fight each other. And this is actually exactly their point.
Mm-hmm.
And that this is really what this thing of identity politics coming from. It's not coming from the actual working class. It comes from the diluting of this revolutionary concept made by a Black woman in the USA, and diluting it to actually do the divide and conquer strategy that USA has been using since its conception.
I totally agree on all of that. I would just add that it's just one of the faces of the Western left. The
Yeah, of
another
course.
very another very important one is that Blairism, if I am not wrong, that is main difference between this and the American left is that Blairism is from the UK. And in the UK, the Social Democrats actually were in power. So the American left is like very toxic on the in the sphere of ideas, strategies, and so on. Like they are corrupting the leftists themselves, but the social democrats from Europe, they uh, they make left look really bad in face of working class because they use this leftist symbology, they consider them leftists and so on, but their policies are neoliberal, anti-working class, and so on. So we can talk and talk about the problems with Western left and how it's actually pro-capitalist and anti-progressive. But going back to the nationalists in Poland, Michał, could you give me next slide?
Yes, I can, but also I want to say something.
Okay.
And I want to come back to this slide because for me, this discussion it is the series of the important question. So there is the moment that we have to choose something. That, for example, this the question nationalist. If we want that there will be our allies. So there is the question of religion. What is our position in the time when we have the mass movement against the Catholic Church, for example, of the education, for example, abortion, and many other stuff. If we support publicly this movement against religion or not, because our decision have consequences. If we support, it is that with our support we can try to influence this movement from big cities, progressive liberals who are against religion. But we have to know that in the same time, our chance to speak with Polish nationalists will be much more smaller. Other question it is what we are thinking about the migrant crisis. That one position is everybody can came to Poland. There is place for everywhere, and we want to build a multicultural society like in Western Europe. The second position of the Polish nationalists, nobody can come. Poland is the country for Polish nation, and that's all. We will not invite migrants. And there are a lot of other questions like this. If we are, if we knew that more of these nationalists are uneducated, it is the question what is our language. If we are using language, we are inviting, I don't know, Professor Bruno and another guy like this, and we are spreading the lectures which are reserved for the educated people, or we are trying to invite a guy like Kazimierz Wichura, or I don't know how was his name. Um, uh, I don't know if Kamrat artists know him, but Reptil, I think, know very well. It was the young guy who are working like Brukash. Brukash, he make a path in the street, and it was very hard job. And he recorded very aggressive, very vulgar videos but it was the anti-elitist, anti-capitalist, and it's a different language. So it is question for us, what do we want? What Because we can influence nationalists, but it will cost us the change of our identity. We have to uh, totally change our strategy, our party, and like this we can be friendly for the nationalists.
Okay, so I have two or three things to address here. So first is what you mentioned about religion. There is a difference in changing a policy of schools of not teaching religion uh, versus personal choice of, are we going to persecute Christians for being Christian? Those are two different things. And one of the very specific reasons why school is the way it is because mm, in the law that states ustava, in the law that states things about
Bill.
yes, bill, in the bill of education, one of the first paragraphs is that the youth is going to be taught in a Christian Catholic, specifically in a Catholic spirit. That's literally in the bill of education in Poland. So all of these things are gonna be more or less addressed when we change, when we switch back to socialism. This is gonna somewhat dissipate on its own, like just a little bit. Second thing is how you said about West being multicultural nations. And the reason why there are so multicultural nations in the West is very much because of colonialism. So, like, these people come there to run away from either genocide or lack of jobs or lack of education or all of those things at once, extreme poverty, and they run away back to the people that took all of that from them. So this is the very much origin of why this multicultural thing is even a thing. There's a difference between Europe and United States and North America in general, because that was just genocide and taking over the land. So this multicultural West of North America is also like a little bit different. South America as well, kind of the same situation. And the last thing is that this type of a branding of Polish nationalists as uneducated is a little bit missing the point. It's misleading, because yes, they are uneducated, and these people have specific views, but this is also views of a somehow majority of their regions. So, like for example, the large amounts of people who vote for peace are in the Lubelskie voivodeship, and the voivodeship of which the voivodeship capital is Radom. I don't remember what's the name of that voivodeship, but these are the two regions with the highest percentage of peace voters, and these are one of the two highest.
Not Radom, Rzeszów, Podkarpacie.
Rzeszów. Yes, sorry, Rzeszów. Yes. And these are the two poorest regions in all Poland. Lubelskie, which is where I come from, actually, is mostly agrarian. We don't have any mining, any hard what's the name of that? Industry. Thank you. Yes. Any hard industry. And this is a region of like just, kilometers and kilometers of just arable land that is very backwards, that is very culturally how do I say that?
Backward.
Well, backward, but I'm devoid of like places of culture. Like we don't have that much places to go to have fun and to get culture. Like in Zamość, there's one cinema. There's like two pubs that you can go like dance or sing or whatever. I cannot really, name anything else that you can do in that city. Like Lublin, the state capital, the voivodeship capital is a little bit different. It has more institutions, but Zamość has very little institutions, cultural institutions that you can hang out or do something or just like find other people who like the same things, do like hobbies. It's really so the point I'm trying to make here is that being a nationalist is like a social bonding in these places, because they just don't have any other means to relate to other people, because they are poor and because there are no places that even if they had any money to go to and do anything, there is just nothing they can personally do about that. And this has also to do with how the government takes away funding each year from these institutions. Like there have been three small libraries closed in the Zamość County in the last 2 years. And they are also like the funding for that is also getting smaller and smaller. So it's it's harder and harder for the library to keep up with like buying new books, buying computers for people to use. It is very hard to maintain those institutions that already are there to be open. So that has to do with
Yes,
that.
but
And
And,
yeah,
there is one place, there are the stadium, and most of these people, where when they want to be with other people, they are going to the watching the football team, even if it
yes,
is second, third, or I don't know, fourth division. But it is not important the football. It is important this atmosphere. The people are together, and they can be try to make fun to attack the equipe from other cities. So
yes,
we can't understand Polish nationalism and the nationalism in all Eastern Europe without analyzing the hooligans of the football, because it is the social base of this aggressive Polish nationalism. But I want, if you have time, to ask you this question: what is our analyze of this multicultural experiment which existed in European in Western Europe, especially here where I am living in the Paris? Because yes, I am agree. Most of the people who are living here, they come from the ancient colonies of France. They come from the French Antilles, Guadeloupe and Martinique. They come from Africa, from Senegal, from Congo. They come from the North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria. It's of course it's true that the French imperialism is responsible for a lot of crimes, a lot of bad things. All the time there are the corporation from France in Africa, and they make a lot of bad things. But the situation in these big cities in France, in all big cities in France, but of course the biggest problem are here in Paris. A situation which in the same time is presented by the liberals like a big success of internationalism, that we are build the society which work, that we the people came from many nations, many cultures, and but it's working, and the other people are looking for the same example, and they are not agree with this. They say that this is totally catastrophe. It is catastrophe for the old people, especially for old people who are living here very often, and mm, the small cities surrounding the Paris, which are the French old people, white, and now they are surrounded by many young migrants with a lot of different customs. It provoked a lot of conflicts. My position is that it's that these things which existed here in region Parisian, it is catastrophe, and it's not good to replying this in other places. The Poland didn't have colonies in the past. Maybe we can consider the Ukraine and Belarus like the Polish colonies. But Poland didn't have colonies in Africa, in Asia, but the demographic
Actually, we
situation.
did. Actually, we did for like 5 years. We did have like a little itty bitty small colony, and we have some colonial history, but it's not comparable at all with the Western
But
history of colonialism at
where?
all.
Where was this colony?
Uh, let me look it up.
No, there was a Polish people who are work for the imperialism, Western imperialism. For example, this guy who worked from Boniecki, I think he was no, Machniacki, the guy who was in Madagascar, Polish guy who in 18th century became king of the Madagascar. And the Słowacki wrote a book about him. Maurycy, something like this. But now is the question: what when we have the growing population of the country like Nigeria or other countries like this? There are growing population, and also there is the climate crisis, and that many people will soon try to emigrate to the other part, especially to Europe, but because the situation will be better in Europe that in the places where the temperature will be bigger than 50 degrees. And if we want to have politics that, yes, we would like to make the same societies in Poland that make in Warsaw the second Paris and the suburbs with the migrants, with many cultures which they don't speak Polish language, they are not integrated with Polish culture. And we believe that it will be something which build a good working society, or it will be society in the edge of the civil war, because I have impression that the situation in France now in the time of the election of the election of Zemmour, it is the situation before civil war. You can see every meeting of Zemmour how the people who are supporting Zemmour, how they are aggressive, how the people who want to stop the Zemmour, how they are aggressive. So we see that it is the relation in the French society when this integration of the people from many countries are not it was a catastrophe, sociological catastrophe. And without analysis of this example, we can't have a good program for Polish nationalism, because we can maybe speak about many other questions, but the question of what to do when in very quickly, because this I don't know, after the war in Ukraine, in very quickly in that 1 or 2 years, in Poland came 1 million of migrants from Ukraine. So we see how the demographic relation can change in very short time. And the people in the small towns, small villages like Zamość, they are scared about this. And we can't have the proposition for them. You are scared, so you are backward, and you don't understand the world. You have to accept the situation that 1 million people from Africa will come tomorrow to your city, and you will be minority in your town, because these people are scaring of this.
Well, but see that here's the point that you really touched on very well. This is the propaganda. They are not gonna suddenly come. It's not gonna be an influx that is gonna be really uh, a problem in one specific city. It's not like they are gonna swarm Zamość and they are gonna just settle in Zamość and stop there and not go to bigger cities with actual opportunities that they can use, because most of these people don't have the degrees or the years of uh, experience in the workplaces that Zamość is looking for. Zamość is kind of a dead city where young people are running away from because there are no opportunities. The opportunities that are in Zamość are for the well-educated, already having some experience, office jobs, and people who are coming here to look for opportunities to run away from poverty. These are not people who are gonna have who are gonna meet the qualifications that jobs in such small cities are gonna use. They are gonna go to bigger cities. They are gonna go to Lublin. They are gonna go to Krakow. They are gonna go to Warszawa. They are gonna go to Gdańsk. They are gonna go to Poznań, Wrocław. You know, they are not gonna go to these small towns where they don't already have something to grab on that is not like already there for them to take before they even come. Like that's not how it's gonna happen. That's one. But second of all, most people who come here as immigrants already have somebody who can help them with the immigration process. That's one. And second of all, Warsaw or Krakow or Wrocław, even Lublin, these are already multicultural cities. And it is like a culture shock for people from Zamość or from like little villages around Zamość to go to Lublin because there are so many non-white people there. But I don't think the nationalism of those places will somehow now, like as I said, I'm gonna pull it back to something I said before. It's the mind, it's the hive mind. So I don't think like in individual relations, if they're gonna see a black person, it's not gonna be like, oh my God, a black person, and they are gonna run to that person and beat them up. Like that's not how this happens, you know. They're just gonna be exposed, you know, to a different culture, and whether or not that changes their mind about some of the things that they were taught or something, then that's like a different topic. But I think there is a subset of nationalists who, either in good or bad faith, make this argument that you kind of touched on, that these people are going to come here and take our jobs away from us. Well, these jobs are not for us. These jobs are very specifically curated to be for immigrants. These jobs are specifically also targeting immigrants because the way, for example, that work agencies prey upon immigrants is because of so many ways that they can only communicate with one person in their group. I've worked in a place like that where I was the coordinator. Every other person in my group was a non-white person, and none of them spoke Polish very good or at all. And we have all not been paid some part of our contract because these people don't know Polish, and because the way that we would have to go through reporting this, it's not something that they can do, because some of them are going to go home back to their countries, and that's going to be it. So they are not going to be even here to go to court and present their case. Not to mention how it's going to take months for the organization to even look into this issue. And it was during pandemic, so it was the time that it would take would be even longer. It's kind of off point, but off topic. Sorry, it's kind of off topic, but it has to do with our main subject as well. And I lost my train of thought.
I mean, maybe let's go to the next slide, maybe, because we're. I thought we will talk about 1 hour, and it's almost 2 hours. I'm not saying go back, because we mostly were talking about the like working class and so on. I wanted to talk about like our main enemy in nationalist movement, which is middle and upper class nationalists. Why is it so important? The like main thing about them is that they are very socially conscious, very class conscious. So they not necessarily even believe in like patriotism and nationalist ideas. They're basically upper class. Often there are small or even larger bourgeois. Mm, some of these like faces of right-wing movement in Poland are even like actual bourgeois. I think one of them was owner of a beer factory or something. So yeah, these are people who actually are very well seated in current socio-economical system. And they are the reason why this entire movement is so reactionary. So going to these people, they are characterized by high education. This is something liberals cannot understand at all. They always portray nationalists as these dumb, backward people who don't understand anything, blah, blah, blah. They actually have higher education. A lot of nationalists are in student organizations, for example, in Warsaw or Krakow. So these aren't these. Sorry, I can hear myself, Michał. So yeah, these actually are part of the elites. But despite the education, they often still have the very backward worldview. They completely don't understand many societal, sociological subjects, for example. They are extremely homophobic, for example, without a particular reason. I mean, it's mostly blind hatred, I think. Their arguments are very unscientific and so on. They're usually citing some 19th or early 20th century publications. So yeah, despite higher education, their worldview is still backward. They're also religious and conservative, or pretending to be. It's a little bit different than with the working class nationalists. I am talking about a phenomena of these people trying to fit into a conservative stereotype, like they are the elites, they are the how to say it, like they are these straight up people, and very often it's just a facade. For example, a lot of politicians from ruling right-wing party that is portraying itself as patriotic, conservative, very religious. They have, for example, like uh, they were divorced many times. They have many different wives or something like that. They participate in very, like, let's say, unconservative things, like
Say something about Bosak.
uh, what about?
You didn't see this priest who accused Bosak in the time of the presidential election?
Maybe I forgot what was that.
No, there was some priest which the video in the YouTube that he said that he have a proof of Bosak who is not heterosexual, and he said that it is that the Catholic and the patriot have don't vote for Bosak because he is homosexual, but. And it was a long discussion in this movement. It was not something that they accused him and that's all. No, it was many weeks they speak about that.
Yes, they are very scared of it. I mean, entire bourgeois nationalism is about that facade. The only reason it exists is to uh, propel, I'm not sure how to say it, to preserve the current socio-economical system. So this entire conservatism, homophobia, and such, it's all part of the facade. Like the homophobic hatred is one of the forces that's moving this movement, right? And they're very aggressive about it. They dehumanize LGBTQ people. So if they are accused by someone that they're gay or something, it's a big deal in the movement. So yes, is that they also anti-socialist and anti-communist. This is almost the same like with the working class nationalists, but this time they are, like I said, class conscious about it, and they not really do the anti-communist. I mean, they also do, but like they are the minds behind that. They are producing that anti-communism in the movement and in the society. Another thing is they are ambitious for becoming some kind of new novelty. Uh, Poland has tradition of specific role of novelty in the society. There was, I think, higher percent of novelty than in other European countries in the medieval times and later.
Wait, you
Novelty
mean
was
nobility?
nobility.
Nobility.
Okay. So yeah, in the between war period, nobility was very like important group. They had a lot of influence, and today people who are from the families which were nobility during that time, or who today want to become some sort of it. They really hate socialist era, and they have this elitist world of view, like they want to put themselves above the rest of society, and nationalism is the way to achieve that for them. Like I said, many members of that movement are like small or large bourgeoisie, and they just want a political system that will fit them. And the last point is what just said, what I just said, that they are responsible for indoctrination of working class nationalists. So I'm not sure what we are going to talk about here. We can analyze them a little bit further. For example, a lot of these upper class nationalists are basically intelligentsia in the way that they haven't worked in their life. I'm not sure, but or the guy in the front on the photo with the microphone, or the one in the sunglasses, actually haven't worked a single day in his life, and is like a lifetime student or intellectual who is funded by his parents, or maybe both of them actually. I don't quite remember.
Okay, so there are a lot of things to touch on here. First of all, the high education that you mentioned. Lots of these people have high education from specifically Christian universities. For example, from KUL, which is a university located in Lublin, which has a Catholic in its literal name.
I mean, you
It's
can
the
translate
Catholic.
the Catholic University of
It is Catholic University of
even
Lublin.
cool
Yeah.
fits.
These supposedly well-adjusted, supposedly high-educated people are getting this high education from places that are very biased against science as well. So a lot of these ideas that they are trying to promote is in the curriculum that they are learning, both in school in the region, as well as higher education that they are getting those degrees from. Another thing is kind of like a broader scale of it's not just them that pushes this kind of propaganda that like we are the owning class, but you can be the owning class too. Like they are not the only ones who do that, and with that there is no left or right. In capitalist society, this is very much manufactured, and it is manufactured in Poland as well. Like the way that they speak is very different from how they act. And even if they say they have like some leftist, progressive views, that's not how they are going to vote on it. A lot of those anti-LGBT zones, for example, have been pushed through by either leftist senators not being there to vote, or not voting at all, or just saying that they are there's like an option that you can say that you are just referring from the vote, so that's what they will use. or they will vote for it, as it has happened a few times. And then um, and then I had one more thing. But it kind of revolves around this same thing, that these parties are divided very superficially, and it's all very fake, and it's kind of, again, like based on this identity politics, so like these people, we're different because we are anti-LGBT, we are different from them because we are pro-LGBT, but these are the same people who are gonna vote exactly the same on that issue. It's also, this is the same, these are the same people that are gonna uh, vote for wasting millions and millions of Polish currency on rebuilding a building that outside of a museum has no use, and nobody's going to benefit from that except the ruling class. And these are the people that they don't have different values from each other. Right wing and left wing, it doesn't really matter. They all have the same agenda, which is owning as much as possible. And this is another thing. All of the ruling people of any party in Poland are the people who are the owner class, who are the bourgeoisie. These are the people who have lots and lots of capital. Um, and that is the thing that unites them, not divides them. So they are also, whether or not they agree or disagree in public, they're going to vote pretty much the same on a lot of things that have to do with money. And the rest of it is for show. All of the superficial differences that they have are not very deep because they are working in the same game. So yeah, that's my input.
Michał?
I think that the subject which we present here is very, very big, and it's one thing, it's your presentation. And second, which is the strategy, what we have to think about the nationalist, and we have to think about this going to the finish this discussion. So I will not start. I have a lot of things to say, but I will not start another topics because I have impression that it will never finish. But we have to continue this discussion. But before we start discussion, we have to make some plan of discussion to have this discussion which go to one direction, but also that we are discuss maximum, I don't know, 1 hour and 40 minutes, not to, because it's very, very, very big, and unfortunately you make a good job, but when I propose you this subject, I wanted to something different. I wanted to make you the photo of Konfederacja, Ruch Narodowy, I don't know, Aleksander Jabłonowski, and something like this, to present the Polish nationalist movement, organization after organization, guy after guy, who is this guy, something like this, we make something here totally different, but of course it was good. But this job was not done what which I wanted to say, so we have to continue this. But now is the question how to organize this presentation and also discussion, and not to lose the and not to make the discussion a little chaotic. But I am happy of.
I mean, I agree. We can make another live about that. Just go through all the nationalist organizations in Poland. I mean, we could even do analyze of like all the political spectrum in Poland. I think it would be quite interesting for everyone. So yeah,
There is
we
the
talk.
one comment, two comment from comrade from, I
Check.
suppose he's from Chile, Vencemeros Allende. You have to fight their nationalist opinions where you meet them. As Marxists, our analysis is built upon class as the central category. I guess you can take up their anti-EU, pro-self-determination stance and start directing this towards a critique of imperialism. Nonetheless, we have to push back on their identity as Polish and start showing them that the fact that they are workers is much more important.
I totally agree with all that. Especially last thing, nationalists they don't see like the difference that border between them and their fellow nationalists who are bourgeoisie. Like even if they see there's something off, I don't think they have like ideological tools to correctly analyze it. I think it's basically think with the working class who are on right wing that they see something is very wrong, but they can't really point with their finger what's exactly wrong and why. So yes,
But this
I
can be
totally
said
agree with
by
all the.
yeah, but this can be said by about most people actually. Like there is no, like, since we have capitalism, we have no media, no mass media to promote the idea of socialism, to promote all of this class analysis, to promote the analysis of the bourgeoisie, to correct the lines that the government is trying to push onto us, that there are people, some people in the government who are either on the left or right, and they care about you. And if you just support us once for 5 years in the elections, we're going to help you. But then they're not going to deliver on it. So it's like, it's not only for the nationalists that we can do this. We have to do this for everybody. And I think this is the central point of this conversation. We should not make the nationalists our central base or people that we are trying to convert. We should try to convert everybody, right? Whatever their identity might be, we should try to push through that the whole society has this kind of outlook.
I don't want to stretch this conversation too much. We already talked 2 hours. I kind of agree, but let's not forget that there are liberals among society who think that status quo is the end of history, and even if it's bad, it's like it won't get better, or if something's wrong, we can fix it with these bourgeois institutions, right? I think the difference between them and nationalists is that they don't feel like they're part of these capitalist global institutions. Like they don't really trust the bourgeois government, bourgeois democracy, and things like that. My idea is that they understand that these institutions are set against them, but they don't have the tool, they don't have this Marxist theory to properly analyze it, and they are being manipulated by nationalism, which is scapegoating on immigrants, LGBT, and so on. But just
But
my
see,
point. Okay.
but see, the similarity lies right there in the nationalism. It's just a different kind of nationalism. These leftists have this European Union kind of nationalism, and that's the left wing nationalism, and the right wing nationalism is the Polish nationalism. So there are a lot of similarities. It's just we have to dismantle both at the same time.
I think, Comrade Reptile, that next time when you prepare this presentation, you will answer the question which you asked. Nationalism in Poland. How was this? Is there
Enemies or potential
Yes, yes,
potential
enemies
allies.
or potential allies. So I know that it is easy to make the photo. I don't know, Winnicki, oh enemy, Bąkiewicz, oh enemy, and I don't know, Bosak, enemy, 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 enemy. Try to present a photo like this, and who can be our ally?
I mean, that's a tough thing, especially
I
you
know, I
have.
know, I know it is tough because from the Marxist perspective, when you show me, I don't know, instead of Kapusiów, enemy, Trotskiści, no, enemy, of course. Everybody in the leftist movement are enemy, but try to find the allies.
I mean, I'm saying it's hard to distinguish them from like society. These convertible nationalists. When you, for example, Google search nacjonaliści or narodowcy, you will usually have photos of like these homophobes or people like Bosak, these politicians. So I could find photos, but it would take time because I'd need to look, for example, for these football enthusiasts. When I look into them, I need to know if these particular ones are nationalists or not, and to see into other groups. For example, I heard that younger generation of Polish miners are heavily right-wing or nationalists. So you won't fight them by writing Polish nationalists because they are not part of like Ruch Narodowy or Konfederacja. They are part of some minor unions. So you have to actually do some research. And if you want to continue this subject, I can do that. It will just take some time.
Okay. Also, I want that you present the movement named Kamraci and their leader, because in one way he defend the socialist Poland after 1956. But in the for example, today I listened his speech, and he said that the people who were vaccinated, so I was vaccinated, that I will die in 3 years. and the population will be there will be big the population. So what to do with the guy who in one side is defending a little socialist Poland, and in the second side he built a movement of crazy people.
Mm, I mean, for people outside Poland, Kamraci is a very
No,
weird
after
internet.
I'm
All
time.
right, all right. Just in short, it's internet
Anti-vax
phenomenon,
people.
very specific group of people, which on one side is completely absurd, but in other hand, it's actually some community of people who were able to somehow organize. So uh,
Oh, this is
from
mass movement and
yes,
real movement of it is the Polish version of anti-COVID movement, on anti-vax movement. Uh,
something like that, but it's not only anti-vax. Like you said, there's some sort of nationalism in it and other things. So from sociological perspective, it's actually very interesting, and I'd really like to talk about it later. But yeah, it's 2 hours 15 minutes, so maybe let's say
So it's good moment to say to the adieu to the all the people who are watching this. I want to only inform that today in Berlin there was a big demonstration to commemorate the memory of the Polish, Jewish, German Marxists from Zamość, Rosa Luxemburg. There was a demonstration to commemorate the death of Rosa Luxemburg, Karl Liebknecht, and Vladimir Lenin today in Berlin. You can find the videos from the Sputnik or other places. And let's talk later and today. Thank you for participation.
thank you.
Thank you.